What's up, guys? I hope you're having an amazing day. During this winter, I have spent quite some time close to nature and away from the city, which is very good for me because I love spending time in the nature and in the woods. Like right now, I love being here, sitting in this place, and hopefully offering you that if you're into that as well. But I have been around Austria in different mountains and stuff, and I have filmed quite a lot of B-roll with my Canon R6 Mark II, which has been quite an interesting experience. I got this camera in June of 2022, and it has been my main camera ever since. Most of the footage that I've filmed during this winter in the mountains, close to nature, has been in C-Log 3, and I wanted to share it with you. Not only to show you the beautiful places that I've seen, I find it fascinating, hope you like that too, but also because in case you're someone who is interested in this camera, in the Canon R6 Mark II, and wants to buy one and is looking to buy one, especially for cinematic footage, because you want to make some cinematic films with it, short films, or just practice cinematography on this camera, maybe this footage could be helpful to you. Maybe you can see what this camera is capable of. Before I show you the footage, I want to also share some of my thoughts and my experience with this camera. Like I said, I got it 8 months ago, and it has been quite a nice camera overall. I would still say though that there are some things that have been pretty annoying about it. You should also take into consideration that I'm kind of a tech nerd, so when I get one camera and I explore it a little bit, then I just want to get another one and look at what that other one is capable of. I get bored, so to say, with one camera. So you should take that into consideration when you listen to this critique of this camera. I would say I'm not so happy about some things, and the main one is the highlight roll-off on this R6 Mark II. I have watched some videos on YouTube recently of Canon cinema cameras which have the EF mount, so the older ones, but even the C70 with the RF mount. The C70 is a bit too expensive for this kind of budget, but cameras like the C300 Mark II, for example, if you buy one used, I could see it for 2,500. And I got this for almost 3,000. So that camera, the footage that comes out of the C300 Mark II or the C200 or the C100 Mark II even, which has 1080p footage as far as I know, like 4K downsampled to 1080p. It has a 4K sensor and downsamples it to 1080p, whereas this camera, the R6 Mark II, has a 6K sensor and puts out downsampled footage, 4K downsampled from 6K footage. I like the vibe, the footage overall from what I've seen from those cameras more. I like especially the highlight roll-off. I've tried to mimic it with this camera, with the R6 Mark II, by underexposing. I've seen around that, like, a lot of YouTubers who tell you how to expose log footage correctly say to that you should do it about one stop for this camera, and generally it's about 1 or 2 stops overexposed. But I noticed that when I do that, the highlights are most of the time clipping, and I don't like that. I want the highlights to be visible, because cinematic footage is like footage that is close to how you see it in real life. And when I look at the sky in real life, and when I look at the forest here and then look up towards the sun, I don't see any white spots except for the sun itself. I mean, the sky is blue, it's visible. And it's a pretty nice day today, so it can only see blue between the tree branches, but when it's cloudy, then you see all the clouds. And if you expose like one stop overexposed, or if you expose with this camera in C-Log 3 for the skin tones, then overall you are sacrificing the clouds for that. You don't see much there, and that's what I didn't like. So I just underexpose or expose at 0, so that I have most of the graph, like my histogram, I think it's divided in 4 parts or something, and there are some lines that divide it where you see the whole dynamic range. And I try to keep the highlights, 2 of those 4 parts, so almost half the histogram, completely like with nothing there. That of course comes with sacrificing the shadows then, which turn very dark, but I've kind of made peace with that, because I know that also cinematic footage looks dark. Sometimes you just only see silhouettes and only some shapes, and people are capable of figuring it out what it is anyways, but it will still be nice to have some more, I guess, dynamic range, but better highlights or roll-off is the key. And that's what I've noticed recently. It has just made me think if I should have gotten one of the cinema cameras that I mentioned. But of course, then there's the issue with RF glass and EF glass. Those cameras only need EF lenses, and I have 2 wonderful RF lenses, the 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8 and the 70 to 200 2.8, which also, I have to say, cost a lot, so I don't think I'm willing to sacrifice those for going back to the C300, so to say, with EF lenses. But an alternative would be the C70. But anyways, I don't want to make it seem like it's so easy, the argument against the R6 Mark II, because it's not at all. The reason why I got this in the first place is because, for example, those cameras are pretty bad at low light, all of them, even the C70, which is more expensive. And with this camera I have shot footage with over 12,000 ISO with no issues, usable footage, and I love that. The second is the autofocus on the R6 Mark II compared to the other cinema cameras. It's kind of not really comparable. This is one of the best autofocusing systems that Canon has to offer today. At this time that I'm making this video, the R5 II and the R1 aren't in the market yet, so I don't know if they will improve on top of this. The R3 is slightly better, but almost the same. I'm getting a bit cold here, by the way, if you're noticing some shakes. So the autofocus, the low light performance, and the third one, the ability to take photos, which is also something I need, have tipped the scale in favor of the R6 Mark II for me over the cinema cameras. But still, with this camera that I have, I'm trying to film some cinematic footage, and I try to color grade it in the most cinematic way that I can. So I will show you the footage right now so that you can decide for yourself. But if you're looking for proper cinematic footage, in my conclusions, this camera doesn't have it. It has great footage, it's very sharp, it's too sharp. That's the point. And that's why it doesn't really work, in my opinion. Anyways, it's just, like I said, take this with a pinch of salt, because I'm really a gear nerd. I like gears and I like switching cameras and trying other stuff. And I get bored, I would say, relatively easily, because I've only had this camera for like, how long has it been now? Alright, 8 months, 9 months, something like that. So yeah, take a look at the footage yourself, and I hope you enjoyed, and let me know in the comments below what you think about it. Whether you also find it not cinematic, whether you find it cinematic, whether you think you have some tips for how to make it more cinematic. With exposure, for example, am I doing the right thing by underexposing or trying to protect a lot of the highlights so that I have more information there, or should I just focus on the shadows and forget about it? So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And now let's go watch some footage